r/AskReddit by Reddit and chill. Has anyone been to a wedding with an awkward or cringe-worthy moment that killed the mood, and if so, what happened? Removed. Went to a wedding a few years ago. The bride just hung out with her friends on the dance floor and didn't really talk to anyone else. The groom made his rounds, greeting everyone and thanking them for coming. He started off one side of the room sober, and by the time he got to the other side he was so drunk. Everyone was feeding him shots. He ended up getting up on our table and started stripping and dancing. It was hilarious. Then he went to the bathroom and ripped a paper towel dispenser off the wall. Bride got mad and left him at the reception. He went outside the venue and threw up. Best man ended up taking him home to sleep it off. Bride had no idea where he was the next morning. They are still married and have kids. Not going to lie, when I got married, I spent a lot of time on the dance floor with my friends and family there. I was having such a good time. I totally forgot to entertain the other guests. We made our rounds during dinner and our cocktail reception, but I mean, when the music came on after our first dance, it was too good to leave the floor. They played all my requests. Anyways, it's over. And no sense of dwelling on what we should have done. I was at a distant relative's wedding reception and all the tables had a bottle each of red and white wine on. There was a delay with the bride and groom showing up to cut the cake and start the meal off, so a few tables popped open the bottles. Then the father of the bride approached all the tables, saying sorry, we didn't ask for wine, and removed all the bottles, including snatching one from the hand of somebody in the process of pouring out. Massively awkward and cringe-worthy, and the rest of the reception was silent afterwards. It turned out the mother-in-law had approved the wine and menu without telling the father of the bride, who was paying for it all, and he wasn't too happy as the bottles were £45 each. Well damn. I bought $3 bottles of red and white for my wedding. It was an open bar. Didn't want to break the bank. I once attended the wedding of my friend's sister. The groom abandoned her at the altar, but the family had come in from Norway to the US and the catering was non-refundable. So they had the reception anyway. There was sad dancing, awkward activities, and the bride had mascara down her face and was angry flirting with anyone that moved near her. Most awkwardly painful experience ever. Upvote for angry flirting. I was at a rehearsal dinner and the groom's younger brother, 14-yo, gave a toast. He cracked a joke about one of the groom's ex-girlfriends having the same name as the bride. It was rough. 14-year-olds are way too edgy for speeches. I just picture the red-headed kid from Idiocracy giving a speech. My cousin's wedding just 2 weeks ago. The bride's parents are divorced because of her father's cheating, beating, drinking, and general nastiness. The father of the bride, who is remarried by the way, calls the bride at 6:30 AM on the morning of the wedding to announce that he will be attending and that he has taken out a restraining order against her mother's boyfriend of several years that everyone really likes. Claims that if he shows his face the cops will be called to forcibly remove him. Bride cries a lot. New boyfriend says he will be there to support her however she wants and offers to kick her dad's ass if he tries anything. The bride pulls herself together and asks her two brothers to give her away at the ceremony. The dad shows up. Pretty drunk of course. At the back of the church. During the procession and sweet talks his daughter into letting him walk her down the aisle. She agrees. I think just to try to prevent a scene, but is basically holding back tears as she starts her wedding. Mom's boyfriend is there. But the wedding progresses as planned in an hour and a half of full Catholic mass later. They are married. Later on, at the reception, her father walks up to the boyfriend at the front tables in front of a crowd of about 300 and pours a full glass of red wine from a new bottle. He then dumps the entire glass directly over the man's head, soaking him down and staining the white suit he was wearing. Immediately one of the brothers begins punching his father and someone grabs him to hold him back. The father tries to punch him back, so someone else grabs the father and holds him back. Meanwhile the second brother takes this opportunity to beat on the father while his hands are being held. Father gets kicked out, but the mood is completely ruined. Awkward and very cringy, so everyone kind of just shuffles out and goes home. It's my personal opinion that every wedding needs an unofficial bouncer. Someone not related to the couple. but a friend big enough to settle things down if someone gets rowdy. As long as he doesn't get rowdy, then look out. I was the only unmarried person at a co-worker's wedding. When the bouquet toss happened, she just handed it to me. It was like that Jennifer Aniston movie. I was so embarrassed I left. Leslie, what about a wedding where you used to go out with the groom and you're the only one there without a date? So the bride makes you dance to Single Ladies by yourself? And oh my god. Did that happen to you? Leslie? Maybe. True story. We'll call the groom Steve and the bride Julie. This took place in the US. Julie was an immigrant to the US. While Steve and Julie were dating, Steve's sister caught wind of a rumor that Julie had been married previously only for the purpose of getting her green card. Steve confronted her with it. She denied it. He proposed. She said yes. Sister didn't drop it and told Steve's parents what she heard. Fast forward to the wedding day. Pictures at 11. Service at 1. That was the plan. At about 10:30, with the whole wedding party assembled and waiting for pictures to start, there's a family meeting with both families, bride and groom, and pastor in the basement of the church. Bombshell dropped. Steve's parents hired a private investigator to explore the rumor. Rumor confirmed. Julie had lied about the previous sham wedding. Those of us in the wedding party had very little idea of what was happening. We just know there's a row going on in the basement and none of the family members or the bride or groom are in sight. This goes on for an hour or more. We're now at about 20 minutes before the service was supposed to start. No sign of the bride, groom, or families yet. They're literally arguing it out in the church basement to decide whether there's going to be a wedding. Steve is committed. Julie is committed. Steve's parents aren't having it. Steve finally puts his foot down. Wedding proceeds with totally stressed out bride and groom. Shaken and very quiet bridesmaid, Steve's sister. Who started this whole shit show? A pastor who's wondering what the hell he got himself into. And Steve's extremely angry mother. They're literally arguing it out in the church basement to decide whether there's going to be a wedding. Steve is committed. Reading too fast and I see the words basement and committed. My buddy's wedding. The officiant called him Alan the whole time. His name is Adam. Alan. Steve. They were supposed to light a unity candle, but nobody took off the cellophane. Hilarity ensued. The minister got so flustered that once they finally got it lit, he says, like this candle your love will burn shitely. It's all on video. And their love burns shitely still. The groom turned up in an army uniform that very obviously did not belong to him. Nothing fit. And he was wearing trainers. The bride didn't seem to notice, but everyone else did. Actually, every single thing that happened at the wedding was awful. Someone got a fake tan handprint on the wedding dress. The bride's brother's girlfriend wore only lingerie and insulted the bride's grandmother. The father of the groom brought his new wife who lectured us all on paganism. We turned up at the reception to find the reception dinner, a slice of processed ham and a block of cheese each. Pickled eggs optional, was out in the elements and attracting flies. The cake was cut, then wheeled off to a back room and never seen again. The bride spent most of the reception in the bouncy castle and the groom disappeared entirely. The cake was cut, then wheeled off to a back room and never seen again. This is the most WTF thing in a sea of WTFs. Like, cutting $50, eating $5 per slice? Or is it a cutting only cake, where they fix up the frosting every time and put it back in the freezer for the next wedding to cut it? In your third story, that maid of honor should have never brought up how the bride and groom met if everyone knew. That's just an elephant in the room after that. Terrible best man speech. Nice guy but did everything you're not supposed to do in a best man speech. Talked about the groom's ex-girlfriends. Actual bad childhood experiences. Inappropriate language, swearing. Inside jokes that no one could understand. No coherent order to what he was saying and dragged on for about 15 minutes. Bride and groom both looked bored and pissed off at the same time. I've been to that wedding reception several times. If when my boys get married, I'm going to insist that the best man submits a draft of his toast ahead of time. I might also have my finger on the sound system switch. The last thing you want is a humiliated bride and groom. Not to mention 2 pissed off mothers-in-law. Maybe that's the joke. My first wedding was the cringe. Mill wore black. Head to toe. Sat in the last pew of church. After wedding she cried. Tore her corsage off. Ripped it up and threw it everywhere. Peeled out of the parking lot and laid rubber down the street as we were going to the reception. She went home, drank, and started popping pills. Phil had to call an ambulance to take her to the hospital. Our wedding night consisted of pagers going off and phone calls off and on all night. Holy hell. My wife's cousin's wedding. The best man got up for his speech and proceeded to stand there and ugly cry into the microphone. Kept trying to compose himself but nope. Just would lose it and start crying again. This went on for what felt like forever. But I think it was really only 2-3 minutes before another groomsman gently took him by the shoulder and had him sit back down. Everyone was really uncomfortable. But it is by far my favorite wedding speech that I have encountered. Silver lining, that's actually kinda sweet, unlike just so many other stories in this thread. Bride had no underwear on and the first dance was right in front of a window with the sun shining in. Goodness to say, we all got a good look without trying. People clearly treated her differently the rest of the day and I'm sure she had no idea until she saw her pictures after. Surely someone should have let her known about the displayed vagina? The photographer? Or a bridesmaid? During the bouquet toss, my cousin, who is in her 40s, recently divorced and just had a kid with a random dude, makes a point to tell all the other women and girls who went up to try and catch the bouquet that they need to let her catch the bouquet because it's her turn to get married next. It was super awkward and she even made everyone stand away from her so she had a better chance. Super awkward. Did she catch it? Venue caught on fire. Probably shouldn't have booked Great White to play the reception. At my own wedding, I had an aunt from out of state corner me and pressure me to get her son a job at the company I worked for. It was the wrong time and place for that. And I wasn't in management or involved in hiring anyway. I finally had to lie and tell her that I planned on leaving that job and looking for another. Saw something like this happen to my brother at his wedding. Bride's brother. Hey, I heard you were doing a lot of programming for $large media company. Groom. Yeah. It's been fun. Bride's brother. You should give me a job so I can help you program. Groom. Do you know how to program? Bride's brother. No. But you could teach me. I got one. Went to my GF's East Coast friend's wedding. Both families were from old money. Very waspy. During dinner, people began giving speeches congratulating the bride and groom on the mic. Then the groom's sister goes up and her speech leaves everyone going WTF. She went on this narcissistic rant, making everything about her and how much the wedding had affected her. Made fun of her brother throughout by saying how she never thought he'd get married and how much hair he'd lost in the past year. Then went on a weird sobbing rant about how much 9/11 had affected her personally, none of it having anything to do with the wedding or her brother. The DJ eventually and awkwardly took the mic back again and said thank you for that, speech and tried some wedding singer jokes to lighten the mood. My sister's wedding. After they were announced husband and wife, nobody applauded. Just dead silence. I want to know more. I was the cringe. I went to a wedding with my high school boyfriend and felt super awkward the whole time because we were extremely overdressed. He bought a suit and insisted that I buy a cocktail dress because that was appropriate for the bride's family. I was only given 1 week's notice and didn't have a lot of money, so I bought a dress that could double as my dress for our homecoming, a formal dance. Turns out his sister's wedding was a potluck at a local public park in the clubhouse. All of the other guests were in jean shorts or whatever they normally wore on Saturdays. The bride wasn't even in a wedding dress and the groom was wearing khakis. We stuck out like a sore thumb. Me more than him because he took off his coat and tie because his mom made him. I was stuck in a damn homecoming dress. The worst part was that apparently my sanctimonious ex had known this was a $0 wedding and that his sister had specifically asked people to just come as they were and bring a hot dish instead of a gift and have a good time. He didn't think that was the appropriate level of formality and dragged me into this little protest of his unknowingly. He refused to acknowledge that what we did was inappropriate. And he insisted he was right and the couple was wrong. TLDR. My boyfriend tricked me into wearing a formal homecoming dress to a wedding he had explicitly been asked to dress casually for. And I felt like a jerk the whole time. He is such an idiot. But the couple probably knew it was definitely not your fault. Ducking like and subscribe.